Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome.
We'll give folks some time to come in. Thank you for joining us today. Oops.
You're jumping the gun,
I
Romayne.
guess so. I was excited to get going.
So excited.
Hi, everyone. We're just going to wait about 1 minute to let a few folks sign in and join. Thanks for choosing to be here with us today.
Yeah,
You want
pop in the chat. Tell us where you're from. And what you ate for lunch if you're feeling chatty. I like that, Bonnie.
All right, let's just give it about another half a minute and then we will
Okay.
get rolling. This webinar is being recorded and the recording will be shared with you after the session, so you can rewatch it and or share with colleagues.
Okay, shall we get started? What do you think?
All right. I'm game.
Okay. All right, showtime, everyone. So hi, and welcome to Strengthen Your Enrollment with Bold Messaging. This is an interactive workshop that's designed to teach you a new framework that you can employ immediately after so that you can create more compelling messages. And we decided to do this webinar right now because we're in a moment of time where every financial decision is being really closely examined by families. And what that means is that independent schools face an even greater challenge to demonstrate that their education and tuition is a worthwhile investment, especially so because public schools don't charge tuition. So it's even more essential than ever for you to communicate your school's identity very clearly so that families can understand the value that your school provides them and their children. So by the end of this webinar, you're going to leave with the knowledge, and you're also going to leave with the confidence to develop messages that are really going to move the needle for your school's enrollment. So my name is Tia Robinson. I am the project operations manager and a strategist at Mission Minded. I'm super happy to be here. And Romayne, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Romayne Levee. I'm a partner and the director of strategy at Mission Minded. I'm also a founder of an independent school and a trustee at an independent school and a liberal arts college. And I love working with schools and helping them become and communicate just clearer versions of themselves. So thanks for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Romayne. So for those of you who don't know Mission Minded, we are a strategy and creative firm that helps independent schools improve their impact. And we believe that the schools that make our world better need to be really unapologetically bold. And that's why every day we dive deep with our clients in order to uncover bold and unifying ideas that are going to attract more families and raise more money for their schools. Because what's worked in the past decade or even in the last 5 years needs to be boldly reimagined to ensure that your school is ready to meet the moment, this moment, in fact. And we were founded because we saw a need within the independent school sector that despite there being really, really talented folks in communications and admissions, they sometimes struggled to articulate who they were and what their value was and how they were distinct from their peers. So we developed the minute message model that Romayne and I are going to teach you today. So I'm really excited about that. We've been lucky enough to teach this framework to hundreds of schools all over the country. And the thing that we hear time and time and time again is how better messages lead to better results. So we have a couple examples for you, and feel free to read these on your own, but I'll give you the really quick highlights. After we worked with the Drew School, they saw a 23% increase in ninth graders. Villa Duchesne in St. Louis saw a 15% increase overall. And when we worked with Holy Trinity in Chicago, they saw a 67% increase in ninth grade. So that's some really exciting stuff, and that's why we're super happy to share with you today. And here are a few more schools and colleges that we've worked with around the country and also around the world.
All right, thanks, Tia. Well, We thought we would use a probably familiar framework in teaching the minute message model to those of you who are here today. And this probably looks familiar to you in some way or in some shape or form. We wanted to break our talk into sort of 4 sections that align with the stages that your families go through when they are making the decision to enroll in your school or not enroll at your school. It starts with them learning about you and becoming aware of you. So this is called the AIDA funnel because A stands for awareness, I stands for interest, D stands for desire, and A stands for action. Those are the things that we want them to become or to learn more about, or the steps or the actions that we want them to take as they move their way through your admissions funnel. So while we're talking about each of these phases, we're going to be teaching you about how a minute message model might work and might help you develop the most effective messages that you can be using at each of those stages as families move through your funnel. So let's start with what we call the awareness phase. And this is when families are just becoming aware of you. They're beginning to form some initial impressions of who you are, what you care about, what you do. They're probably hearing about your school in word of mouth at their kid's soccer game or some social circle. And the name of your school comes up, and here's where they start to click in and they become aware and they start to wonder who you are and what you're all about. So the kind of messages that you want to have at this level when people are first learning about you need to be very, very clear about something about your school that's going to resonate with them, that's going to be relatable, that's going to sort of click home or hit home with them. That's something that's of interest to our family or a value that we share, for example. Um, and it's also important that a message at this level really clearly help you stand out versus other schools, that you're not just one of many schools who have similar features or, similar set of programs, but there's something about you that's really unique. So really critical at this stage, that a very high level awareness building stage, people are learning already what's distinctive about you in a way that's resonant. And the consistency of that is going to work in your favor so much. So it's not just enough for someone to mention your name on a soccer field sideline. It's you want them to mention your name and then to say something about you that is consistent with what someone else would be saying at some other event or some other time when they're meeting up with someone. So that happens in what we call a belief message. And what you're looking at here on the screen is Tia referenced the minute message model a couple of minutes ago. That is jargon for Mission Minded's way of thinking about what are the kinds of different messages that we want to use when we're walking somebody through your admissions funnel. So when Tia introduced Mission Minded a couple of minutes ago, she mentioned the minute message model. And she also told you Mission Minded's belief message. She said that we believe that independent schools need to be unapologetically bold in this moment. That's the way that you stand out. So that's an example of a high level message that was delivered to you in the context of kicking off a webinar where we told you who we are and kind of what we believe and a little teeny bit about what we do, but not everything that we do. So the way that the minute message model works is almost counterintuitive to how most school people tend to talk about schools today. When someone asks about a school, we intuitively start talking about the grades that our school serves, or where we're located, or whether we're single sex or co-ed, or maybe we're progressive, or we're high, we have excellent sports. We kind of go to this list of features first. We call those the details, and you see those are at the very, very end of this this sort of metaphorical megaphone. That means we think those are the last kinds of things you should be talking about, is those little details like that. The first thing you should be talking about is that high level, resonant, conceptual kind of giving people a vision for who you are. And that's called a belief message. So we're going to teach you a little bit more about that today. And actually in this session, you're going to have time to write one for your school. We want to get you drafting. We want to get you playing with this. And hopefully you leave here with something on paper that you like. And of course, reach out to us so that we can help you bring that along. So the belief message puts your stake in the ground. It says at a high level who you are. It gives a high level idea or a vision. It starts to build some comprehension of what you care about. Perhaps it even alludes to the problem that you serve or the reason that your school was founded in the first place. Something that's just conceptual enough, but resonant and unique for your school versus what other schools might be saying when they introduce themselves. So we call this a belief message. You may have heard of this referred to as an elevator pitch in other circles. This is how we kind of frame it and teach it at Mission Minded. And what goes into a belief message is three things. It starts with at Mission Minded or name of school, we believe something, and you finish that sentence and you put a stake in the ground about something that you believe in deeply and dearly. And then you go on to say in sort of sentence number two, and here's what we do about it every day. Every day we do the following. In a really simple and clear and resonant way that a family or a student could hear and say, oh, that's really interesting what they do about that thing that they believe in. And then the third part of the equation for a belief message is because when this happens, or because when we do this, this wonderful thing happens, either for our graduates or for the world because of how great our graduates are when they move out into the world. So the way that you develop a belief message is formulaic to start, but the goal is that once you complete your belief message, it doesn't feel formulaic. It feels very unique to you. It feels very sort of authentic in how you say it out loud. We wanted to show you an example of a belief message for Severn School. Some of you may have seen this before if you came to our webinar last month. This was an example that I showed. Of a way that on a homepage of a school's website, they just plop their belief message right down. So no one has any questions of who they are, what they believe in, what they do about it every day, and why it matters. So for Severn School, it's at Severn School, we believe that there are many ways to lead and that every student has the potential to be exceptional. So every day, here's the so what we do part. Every day, our teachers model what it means for students to lean into academic challenges and step into personal growth opportunities and have tough conversations needed to enact social change. And then the last sentence is this is the great thing that happens. So when we do, because when we define leadership by the positive impact we have on others, we become the empathetic, dynamic individuals on which our world depends. So that's a finished belief message that started with that real simple, we believe, so we do, and when we do, this great thing happens. And in writing and evolving and iterating, Severn ended up with this really powerful message that sits on their homepage. It sits in many, many places in the materials. It's the first way that somebody is introduced to the community when they come to an open house event. Here it is in a little bit of a clear format for you to read. And again, just what you see underlined here are the what we believe, the so we do, and then because when we do, this great thing happens. So in a minute, we're going to come back to an exercise where Tia and I will give you some time to write a belief message for your school. But keep in mind, this is going to be the framework of how Severn broke it down. They believed there's many ways to lead. And so what they do is they model leadership. And then because this is what happens in the world when their graduates go out and live and work among us all. All right, so that's belief message. And that again is about building awareness. People just learning about your school, you're for the first time, maybe they're a prospective donor, prospective family. And it's really critical that you kind of hit on those big points at the building awareness phase. We're going to shift into now talking about the next phase, and Tia is going to walk you through how we build interest.
Yeah, so the next phase is the interest phase, and that's the phase where families are learning more about you. They're doing research online. So typically they're going on your website or they're looking on your social media channels. And then they also might be looking at some online rankings and reviews. And so while you have really limited control over reviews and online rankings, the good news here is that you have 100% control over what you say on your own website and on your own social media channels. So that means what you say and how you say it really, really matters. Romayne mentioned consistency. You want to make sure that that message is consistent over all of these channels.
By the way, I just thought of something to build, Tia, when we say that maybe you don't have 100% control over reviews and rankings, and that is true. You also do have the control of asking your families who love you, or teachers or staff who work at your school to please do reviews of your school. You can't necessarily tell them exactly what to say, but of course, those would be people that you would maybe hope that would give the school a great review. So that is something that's in your control, is to prompt people and invite them to help you build up the reviews and the conversations that are online.
Another thing is if you have a really strong brand and you are sending consistent signals to your families, they're going to start mimicking that language. It may not sound exactly the same, but they're going to mimic back to you what they see and what they hear. So again, you don't have 100% control over every single word, but if you're reinforcing what you want them to say, it'll come back to you.
Yeah, great.
So that's where the problem message really comes in here. So if we refer back to the messaging structure that Romayne just showed you, your belief message explains who your school is, but a problem message explains why that matters, why your school is needed, why it exists. So an example of a sort of category of schools that do a really good job of this are girls' schools. They explain all the lost learning opportunities that happen to girls who are in co-ed environments. And that's a problem message. They're telling you why a girls' school needs to exist. So if you remember when I said Mission Minded was founded because we saw a need within the independent school sector, I mentioned that schools sometimes struggle to articulate who they are and how they were distinct from their peers. Well, that was Mission Minded's problem message. That's the reason that we exist. That's the why behind everything we do. And I said it pretty casually, and so you might not have noticed it was the problem message, but it was something to say, oh, I see why Mission Minded is here. So when should you use it? You should use the problem message when the belief message piques someone's interest. So they say, oh, that was interesting. Like, tell me more. Tell me more. You might use it in written communications. A great chance to use it is on tours with your families. It's a great way to sneak in why your school exists. You might use it on secondary pages of your website or in social media. So keeping up with Severn, we wanted to give you an example of one of their problem messages. So this reads, what it means to be a leader has evolved. In times of constant change and adversity, we've come to appreciate that agility is as important as intelligence. Personal wellness outweighs physical strength, and that listening the deepest, not speaking the loudest, is what creates connection. So I want you all to imagine your family, you're touring Severn, and the tour guide says this to you. And you're thinking, well, why are they saying that? But it's piquing your interest. It's making you think of something that you might not have thought of. And then it's also setting up Severn as the solution to that problem. But they can't be the solution if you don't know what the problem they're solving is in the first place. And so that's why it's really important to have these problem messages so that you could set yourself up to show your value right up front.
Yeah, and in a very expert way too, right? It's not a run-of-the-mill thing. It's a specific thing that, in this case, Severn gets to lean in and say they have specific expertise in solving for this issue, or filling this need that maybe wasn't in the case 15, 20 years ago.
Right. So I would love for you all to take a look at the sample social media post from Severn. And so this social media post is about some sixth grade students who were having pizza for lunch. And they got this pizza because they were able to name every single person in their class. And so that would have been fine, right? To have a social media post that said, look, our kids know each other's names. Here's some pizza. They're celebrating their happy, joyful kids. But what Severn did in this post is they really added some context and they mirrored language that was in the problem message that I just read to you. So it would say, it's about agility, wellness, and deep listening. Those are literally exact words that were pulled from their problem message. And they're showing that leadership today is really the context for why knowing everyone's name is important to them. Getting the pizza, it's nice, but it's really the prize for fostering that connection. That's something that they're unique at. That's the problem they're trying to solve. And so we aren't going to spend some time doing this exercise, but I would love for you all to maybe take a screenshot so you'll know how to develop your school's problem message. But to do that, we want you to answer this question. What's going on in education or even the world, think bigger, that makes your school's approach to education essential. And so I'll give you a little bit of time. But you should spend maybe 10 minutes after this webinar, just get your thoughts out. Hopefully your creative juices will be flowing. But this is really the start of how you get to your problem message.
So we are going to do an exercise of a belief message,
Mhm.
but as Tia said, we wanted to just make sure you have the prompt to do this one on your own after the webinar. So grab a quick screenshot of this. By the way, we'll share out these slides as well as this recording after. So if you don't get a great screenshot, you'll get this some other way shortly. All right, shall we move on to the desire phase? All right, so by now your families are aware of you. They're starting to kind of click into how your school's unique. They have heard your belief message. They've experienced other people repeating some of the ideas in that belief message when they're describing the school. And then in some interactions with you or materials that you've now shared out, they're starting to understand the context in which your school exists and why your school's approach is important. So in the desire phase, now we're saying our goal here now is to create desire, is to really get them to sort of lean in and want what you have and what you offer. And the phase here is building an emotional connection. So, or I'm sorry, the goal is about building an emotional connection. So this typically happens in more controlled environments on your campus when people are coming for tours or open houses or shadow days or revisit days. These are brilliant opportunities when you're one-on-one or a small group leader to really lean in and share some great anecdotal stories about the impact that your school has that just kind of fit into and build on everything that they've learned so far. So again, looking back at our minute message model where we've now done a belief message and Tia talked to you about how to create a problem message for your school. Now we're going to move into impact. I want to remind you when Tia introduced Mission Minded again at the beginning of this webinar, she shared a blue slide that demonstrated how some schools that we've worked with have been able to increase enrollment. That's one great outcome of a branding initiative or a key messages initiative. That was mission minded telling you an impact story. We've worked with schools when they do this model that we just told you about is important and needed in today's world. This great thing happens for them. And our goal with that was to demonstrate to you how to create desire. I suspect there might be a couple of you in our audience today that would say, oh, we'd like to have that for our school. We'd like to have those similar results or some sort of uptick. You might have other goals that you have for your new messaging, but generally that is one that definitely does more than create interest. It creates some excitement and desire. So again, we did that to demonstrate to you how an impact message could work. And now let's talk about how to create those for your school. So again, you're going to always begin with the belief message and the high level information. You move to a problem message, and now somebody's really interested, and you're going to create desire. And you're going to do that at now the time when a family's really showing interest in learning more. How do you do this? Give me an example of how this happens in your school. Working these things into the welcoming stories at an open house or into materials that you're sending home. All of the different ways that you're sharing and inviting people into your school community. You really want the level of messages at the desire phase to be demonstrating your impact through stories of your students, stories of your teachers, stories of your alumni, and people understanding how not just that great thing happened, but it happened because of your approach to education. So we always want to remind people that we have great students in our schools, but the story about the great student is only going to benefit your school if you connect what's great about their experience to your program or your value or your vision or something about your school that's unique. Because that great kid might have been great somewhere else, right? So the point is, what was it about this school and this program and this environment that enabled that wonderful story to be told? All right, so
Yeah, I
that's the
think we
goal.
also we often see stories where, as Romayne said, it's a nice, joyful story, but it's really making that connection. We often at Mission Minded like to share a quote that says, after you tell a story, you have to say why you're telling the story in the first place. So you literally have to make the connection. It might be clear to you because you work at that school, so you know how great it is and how your
Right.
students thrive there. But for others, just hearing the story for the first time, you need to sort of make that mental connection for them.
Yeah, and then another great criteria is, could someone else tell this story? Could this student just has as well been successful and been able to tell this story if they were at another school? So if the answer to that is yes, keep working on that story. It doesn't mean it's not a good story. You just haven't told it right. You haven't connected it to your school's reason for being. Okay, so that's when you use a impact story or impact message, and back to the point that I just made, it has to tie back to your school's distinctiveness. You have not done yourself a favor if you've just told a story about some wonderful student or faculty member or parent or family, if you haven't tied it back to your reason for being. We wanted to share two stories. These are sample impact messages that Severn created. And these are the kinds of things that you might see in an alumni newsletter or in an annual report where, the school's just celebrating their incredible alumni. And I just want to note a couple things about these two messages. The first one is about a former student named Josie, that recalls her Severn experience, that she was passionate about humanitarian issues. And she talked about, really being engaged by her teacher to think more about the world, and it spurred her interest in global studies. It spurred her interest in activism and all of those things. But the thing that I want to highlight is that's bolded here is something that was added to this message to bring it back to only a story you could tell at Severn, right? Severn is the school that believes that there's many ways to lead. And this is important that this mentioned in this story that Josie was inspired by her teachers to step up, which is, another way of saying to lead, to lean in. The second story similarly is about another alum named Cherie, who was the first in her family to graduate from college. And she recalls that her sessions at Severn were with caring faculty who were invested in her growth. But this bolded statement here, it goes more to say it's more just that they cared for her and that they knew who she was, but that they modeled for her what it meant to lead every day. That's right out of their belief message. So you want to continue to reinforce some of those sound bites that you use in your belief message, in your problem messages, in your impact messages, just because consistency is, as Tia said, the more people keep hearing, oh, wait, there's that idea of modeling leadership again. Right, that's who this school is. And the more that you can do that through storytelling, the better you'll be. All right, let's talk about the action phase now. Tia, back to
Okay.
you.
All right. To pull up the rear of this funnel, the last phase, the action phase, and that's the probably most exciting phase for some folks. It's when you've offered enrollment to a family and the action you want them to take is yes. You want them to be excited. You don't want them to think twice about saying yes to you and your school. So when families are comparing schools, many times they're comparing features to features. Sometimes they have a spreadsheet or a list and they're looking gym to gym, science program to science program, extracurricular to extracurricular. So this is where it's most important to make sure that they understand the benefits or the why behind all of the features. So if we refer back to our funnel again, you would do that through a detail message. Detail messages continue to be a great opportunity for you to reinforce your school's why, reinforce why you need to exist, why you're unique and distinctive from other schools in the area.
Remember earlier when I said a lot of schools start here with these features? Oh, we just got a new gym, or we have this incredible maker space, or we're co-ed, or right? Those are the kinds of features we're talking about. So first point is they come later in the scheme of messages, and Tia's going to tell you a little bit about what makes for a really strong detail message.
And it's hard to break. We're used to talking about the day-to-day, what we do in our own work. And so sometimes it's really hard to make that switch, but it's a really important one.
Yeah.
So when should you use your detail messages? You should use them on your website. So if you're explaining what a program is, that'd be a great place for you to put that detail message. At a school fair, in your admit packet, or when you're explaining your programs to your family. So if you're on a tour and they're asking about some program, this would be a great place to show your value. So how do you link program features to benefits? So I did this when I introduced the minute message model to you. I told you that it would give you a set of messages that would make people understand the value of your school and understand who you were. But notice what I didn't do. I didn't say how long it was. I didn't say how many parts were in it. None of those details were there. The only thing I spoke about was what it could do for you, the value that you were going to get out of it. And that's the thing that would make you interested. And the same needs to go for your school. You don't want to talk about the nitty-gritty details, the day-to-day. You want to talk about the value or the benefits that you're able to provide. So we have some more examples from Severn. And so the first one is about their lower school media center. And it says, young minds are shaped by the stories and the content they consume on their own time. Our lower school students have exposure and access to the diverse array of stories that have molded our world. Lower School Media Center. In the Lower School Media Center, a child can see characters and themes that reflect their identities and experiences and be exposed to the characters and stories that are different, dynamic, and diverse. So this media center, you don't know how many books are in it. You don't know what time of day the kids go, how long they spend there. The important thing that they want you to know is that young minds are shaped by the stories they consume. So a parent seeing this or hearing this could know, my kid is going to benefit from the media center in these ways. And then the same goes for the upper school service learning. If you read this, you don't know when they go, how long they go, what they do. But what you do know is that this program is supporting empathy. Students come out of this and they become great advocates for the causes that they care about. They have compassion, gratitude, and they also have a lasting desire to contribute to the world around them. So again, the important thing is what, in this case, the students are getting out of it, what the community is getting out of it, and then by extension, what the world is getting out of it, because we get compassionate students who have gratitude and they want to see the causes that they care about shine.
So the simple formula for a detail message is put the benefit in sentence one,
Mhm.
and then a high-level description of what the program or the feature is in sentence two, and that's your detail. That tells about why you have this new makerspace or what happens in your service learning program or whatever it is. It's those two things. Lead with the benefit first, and then describe the program or the feature in the second sentence, and there you have a detail message. We're going to jump into an exercise in a second where you get to write your own belief message, but we wanted to let you know about an exciting opportunity that we have put together at Mission Minded for a very small cohort of school folks who want to do the work we just did with you in about 30 minutes, but to come together as a cohort group and develop a set of key messages for your school together. So we have designed a special interactive group of workshops with this cohort group. And in it, you will create your belief message, your problem message, your impact message, and then sort of be in a place to develop all the detail messages that you need for your school. If this is something that interests you, working in a small group of school colleagues doing this work together with Mission Minded's guidance, please let us know. I think we're trying to wrap up the enrollment in this group in early to mid-December, and we actually are offering a little bit of a price break if you are able to register in the next couple of weeks. So Bonnie is going to drop a link in the chat right now, I think, or if she hasn't already, about if you want to just click through and connect to my calendar, grab some time if you're interested, or to land on our page that tells you a little bit more about this. So wanted to let you know that's a great opportunity for some folks if you want to do this work with a little bit more intention than in a webinar. All right, so the moment we have been promising is here. We want you to write a belief message for your school. So please stick with us. This is great, great work and a great opportunity for you just to get some ideas down on paper. You're not going to have it nailed in the next 10 or 15 minutes, but I promise you, you will have something that feels like a really good starting point. And Tia and I want to offer our time to you if you want to share them with us, either through the chat right now as you write them, or in email in a second. We'll share our email addresses. So again, just reminding you of the 3 pieces of the Severn message. The one that starts about with something that we believe deeply, that is resonant and sets you apart from other schools. What you do every day, what's the so we do, and then when we do, this great thing happens. And that breaks down into these 3 concepts. So the way we start this process at Mission Minded is we give you this very handy little fill in the blank, kind of looks like a Mad Lib, if any of you remember Mad Libs from back in the day, where you fill in a word into help complete a full sentence. This won't ultimately be your your finished or final belief message, but it's a great way for you to sort of gather your thoughts and inventory. What is that deeply, deeply held belief that we have? What is it that we do every day in service to that idea? Who do we do it for, and what's the why, or what's the great thing that happens? So we are going to give you between 5 and 7 minutes. It looks like we're tracking on time pretty well, to just do this. If you have a keyboard in front of you, or a pad and pen, or however you best think and create, to complete this on behalf of your school. And each of these should be a very short sentence. And just put your head down and give this a try. We're gonna be here, and in about 5 or so minutes, we'll ask if anyone wants to share them through chat. We'd love to see a couple samples. By now, it's occurring to you how hard this is to do. We just want to have some empathy for you and let you know that it takes us sometimes a couple weeks or even a month before we land on every single perfect word for a belief message. So keep going, and just know that this is a process of prioritization and trying out different turns of phrase.
And if you can get the concepts for the 3 parts down, you're like 75% there. The
Yeah,
wordsmithing, you always have time, but the concepts, if you could get everyone to agree on those and you really have them down packed, then you're pretty much there.
that's actually a great point, Tia. I'm going to flip back to this slide in case anyone's kind of struggling right now and just wants to break this down conceptually first. So if you're finding the writing, the answer to the sentence, we believe, maybe just use this framework to come up with the bigger idea first. And yeah, words can be sourced and created and iterated on a little bit later. We would love to see anybody's super, super, super rough draft dropped into chat if you're willing. If you're not, that's fine. We understand. Here's this formula again. We'll just give you about 2 more minutes to keep playing with this. Ooh, I see something. Okay, we're going to ask for 1 or 2 brave volunteers to drop either where you landed with your draft, or even if you want to break it up into the we believe, so we do, and what happens when. Um, we would love to just see 1 or 2 in the chat so we can cheer you on. We're asking educators to do something that educators ask kids to do every day. Now we know why kids squirm. All right, we got one. Linda, thank you. At Asset School, we believe all children can thrive and realize their own potential. So every day we celebrate students' strengths, and where students have challenges, we meet them where they are and teach them in a way that works for them. So that middle sentence makes me really hear about the individual potential and about the individual attention, about students being seen for who they are. I'm really picking up on that idea. And then the last is we specialize in educating those with dyslexia and other language-based learning differences, still working on the because why. Great. So yeah, that would be, and when we do, students maybe who've previously struggled with things like dyslexia are off in the world thriving because they know how to learn, or they know about, what makes them learn best. So if you can sort of flip that into, rather than what you specialize in, but when we do what we do well, this is what happens for them. That's a great build on that last sentence, but nice job.
That was a great
Hey,
job, Linda.
Linda. Let's give Linda some love.
Yes. Big round of applause there. Thank you for sharing.
Linda, you made everyone else look, you made everyone else look good. Thank you. If anyone else wants to drop one in, we've got a couple more minutes. So please do, but let's just kind of finish up with what our content was we wanted to share. Tia and I are, please, please, please take us up on this offer. This is our email addresses, romayne.levee@mission-minded.com and tia.robinson@mission-minded.com. Shoot us your belief message. Keep working on it. If you didn't get it to a point today where you feel great about it, shoot it to us later this week. Oh, we got one from Percy. Yay! Thank you, Percy. At Bush, we believe a great education challenges you to develop your own great mind. So every day in every grade, students are introduced to new ideas, varied perspectives, and bold questions, because when we nurture our students' innate curiosity and ambition, they become confident intellectual explorers ready to blaze new trails in college and beyond. Fantastic. I'm wondering, I know Bush School is a client of Mission Minded's, and I'm wondering if you strayed a little bit from, or if that is the message we developed together. And by the way, that is a very real thing, that sometimes you develop a belief message, and then as you start to use it in, in the field, if you will, and out there in the world, you realize you are saying it a little bit differently. Very minor changes. Fantastic. Thank you, Percy. Yeah, it just flows off the tongue a little bit. Mission Minded just rewrote our belief message. The message that Tia shared with you today is a slight modification on one that we even developed ourselves in-house. So know that this is something that you're going to continue to be iterating on. All right, Diane. Oh, love it. Marin Academy knows that in today's ever-evolving world, students need to hone the durable high-level skills or competencies that only humans can master in order to thrive in and after high school. Every day, students engage in real world problem solving, learning by doing, and leading, because an MA education is for life. Love it. Great to see you, Diane. Thank you. This is so great. Thank you. Thank you. Please take me and Tia up on our offer. For those of you who didn't share in the chat, your messages, we would love to give you a quick look and give you some tips on how to make your first draft a little stronger. And we are sincere in that. And if anyone is interested in joining that cohort group, we have a couple of spots open and we would love to fill them with you. So thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate your time, and any questions that you have for me and Tia, go ahead and drop them into either chat. We'll stick on this line for a couple more minutes in case there's anything that anyone would love us to answer. Thanks again for being here today, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Woohoo. I love our star students. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think that's a wrap. Mission Minded team. Thanks, everyone.